basics, keep it fair. Just a warm, dry home away where rent jumps yearly, no apology. Ay, market adjustment theology. They say be grateful, smile, behave. While landlords get another tax break, we're going back to basics. That's the line they always say. Can't afford the rent in Auckland, can't afford it anywhere. Power bill spikes in winter, insurance doubles overnight, and they call it personal responsibility when the lights won't stay on at night. Insurance says flood zone, sorry mate. Premiums up, blame climate fate. Petrol's to something, pushing 3. Pay to get to work, don't you see? They say competition keeps prices low. Funny, only one power company where I go. We're going back to basics, but the basics cost your soul. Can't afford the petrol, can't afford the power, can't afford to fill the trolley full. They say just shop around, say budget smart. When countdown pack and save, new world on the card. This isn't living beyond our means, it's living inside a rigged machine. Childcare costs more than the weekly pay. EC fees eat the wage away. Work to pay someone else to raise your kid. Tell me what part of this is choice exactly? A breakthrough high, power too high, fuel too high. Childcare, you're dreaming. They say infrastructure takes some time. Say trust the process, say you'll be fine. Say tighten belts, say don't complain. While MPs get theirs indexed for pain. We're going back to basics, that's a slogan on repeat. Can't afford to be sick, can't afford a week off heat. They say this is just economics, say everyone pays their share. Funny how the basics vanish.
And good evening and welcome to tonight's Autopaper podcast where our panelist has literally just got into the seat. How's Ray?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you crystal clear. Now, I
Very
just want
good.
to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, I can. I'm all right.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. So how's Ray today?
Ray is having a lazy Sunday, I suppose. And I also get tomorrow off where I'll get more done around the place and feel like I'm, moving somewhere in the world.
Oh, I know that.
Sometimes difficult to move around world.
Oh, I can picture that feeling very, very well. Yes. Now, I want to ask, has there been any public update you're allowed to tell us about Kandala?
I don't think so.
Now, I just want to ask this, because you frequently go through that train station because of work. When you come into the station, do you? Because I read somewhere online, I think it was on one of the articles online, that when they changed, there was a change done when they upgraded the signalling at Wellington train station.
Yes.
The signalling going into Kandala changed that when you're heading southbound, you come into the station on the home signal of caution with the departure at a stop, and then the departure changes to green once the train has arrived at the station.
That sounds mostly correct. I do believe there were issues with circuitry at the time. And I can't say anything more.
Oh, okay, yeah. And also there's people who have sat there and said apparently there's a train stop at that station, but I don't remember Kandala even having a train stop. The only ones on Johnsonville line is the two at Wadestown.
Yes, much like at Wadestown, but that was a recent addition, possibly at the last Christmas block of line. I don't recall exactly. It still feels new to me when I go past it.
Oh yeah. It's all right. You can always give the fun part of what happens up at Plympton as well. I mean, that's
So
always
the safety feature on the rail works. Yes, very good.
Oh yeah, and it's interesting when you find out where the train stops are. Like, I mean, at Murray, there's a train stop there that not many people actually know, but it's like if you race around that corner too fast, you'll trip that train stop. But if you actually go around the corner at the correct speed, the train stop lowers and the signal goes goes yellow over green.
Have there been any more public announcements?
Oh no, no. There is. I do know that there has been. There were pictures on the Kandala group. And actually, I have to be honest, it's been fantastic the amount of pictures that you can sit there and see there. So, like, a great way of saying this. This is probably going to be one of the most documented train disasters that we've ever had in Wellington. Like,
well, it is still replaced by bus on the line. They last I read, they were hoping for works and safety checks to be completed by today. So maybe it does say Monday 8th to Monday 15th bus is replaced.
Yep, which is tomorrow. Yeah, so
rail service.
So yeah, they had to also move all the electrification wires off the tracks to get the crane out the train. So that's one of the pictures from the Station Road exit. That's the main unit, the southern end that is being towed out on a long loader to Hutt Workshop via the Narrawonga Gorge. No, not Narrawonga Gorge, the Haywards Hill, because Narrawonga Gorge is too steep. That's it being lifted onto that truck. So, I mean, yeah, a fair bit of shit has happened in poor little Kandala. I mean, you know, I don't think Kandala's had this much drama since I don't know when it last happened. But, yeah, it's quite intriguing, just like the whole thing that's gone through there. Yeah, it's quite amazing, you know. But it's quite amazing the amount of pictures that are actually on there that are available. There you can also see other people have their little things like this is another picture during the day where a shunting loco came up the line. So probably the first time there's been a diesel on the Johnsonville line in some time. Sat there and pulled out the tail end of it. This one shows it in the concrete stop block at Kandala. As you can sit there and see, they've had to move all the electrification wire over to one side and just basically get it completely out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, it's quite well documented. Like, you know, the amount of photos you get. This is just on one Facebook group.
Well, I do not have the Facebook, so I would not know.
Oh, don't worry, you're not missing out on much. Yeah, so yeah, that's what's come out of from the Kandala, one of the Kandala Facebook groups.
Yeah, the main thing is that the crew and passengers are safe, and I hope that investigators are able to contact all of the passengers on board because they were trying to reach out. And
yeah,
everybody's pitched in. You know, everybody working together to do everything.
How many bouquets of flowers have gone out?
Yeah, can only imagine.
Yeah. Okay, let's get on to our first bill, the Fair Trading Amendment Bill, first reading. And I believe we have another minister missing in action. This one's a very newly appointed minister, which is Cameron Brewer. However, I believe we have Scott Simpson. Scott Simpson is the member in charge of the bill. So you can kick it off, Scott.
Found on the Parliament website.
Madam Speaker,
Scott Simpson.
I move that the Fair Trading Amendment Bill be now read a first time, and I nominate the Finance and Expenditure Committee to consider the bill. Madam Speaker, the Fair Trading Act is one of the core consumer protection pieces of legislation in New Zealand. It sets the baseline rules that stop businesses from misleading people, making false claims or using unfair business practices. It's the Commerce Commission, Madam Speaker, that enforces those rules, and then the courts decide whether there has been a breach and use their discretion to apply the penalties and remedies available under the Act. At its heart, this amendment bill is about fairness. It backs honest businesses and strengthens the consequences for those few who choose to cut corners. It gives New Zealanders confidence that they are being treated fairly by businesses. And it does that, Madam Speaker, in 3 practical steps. First, it modernises how the Act is enforced by shifting most breaches into an easier to enforce civil liability regime. It also increases the penalties for breaching the Act. Secondly, it gives online service providers clearer legal protections when they act quickly and in good faith to disrupt suspected scams. And the third element, Madam Speaker, is that it streamlines product safety requirements so technical standards can be kept up to date. So I'll now go through each of those 3 steps in a little more detail for the sake of the House. Firstly, modernising penalties and enforcement. Now, the Act currently relies heavily on criminal enforcement to address a wide range of commercial conduct, and the current penalty settings are out of step with how similar conduct is regulated elsewhere. A civil liability regime is better suited to addressing this kind of commercial misconduct while still allowing meaningful court-imposed monetary penalties. It also brings the Act more into line with other commercial regimes such as the Financial Markets Conduct Act and the Commerce Act. Now, we've seen, Madam Speaker, how issues like pricing and specials can create real consumer harm. And that includes Fair Trading Act charges relating to misleading specials, for instance, and guilty pleas and prosecutions for misleading promotional pricing. This bill shifts most breaches from a criminal enforcement model to a civil liability regime, and that means that the rules about what businesses must do and must not do stay the same. Criminal offences remain, however, for a limited set of very serious conduct issues. These include serious product safety offending and behaviour that obstructs the regulator. On top of shifting most breaches into a civil liability regime, the bill also lifts the maximum penalties for both civil and criminal offences, and it does so in a tiered way so the consequences better match the seriousness and scale of the conduct. The change increases the maximum penalty from $600,000 to the greatest of $5 million, 3 times any gain made or loss avoided, or the value of the relevant transactions. For lower level breaches, the bill applies a lower tier with a maximum of $200,000 for businesses. So these changes, when taken together, intend to ensure that businesses are less likely to treat breaching the Act as a cost of doing business, while keeping the criminal law for truly serious, deliberate conduct. These changes back honest businesses by helping ensure competition is based on playing by the rules, not cutting corners. The second step that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about, Madam Speaker, is about enabling the proactive scam disruption component of the legislation. We all know that scams cause very significant harm in New Zealand. Payments New Zealand has reported losses of over $200 million for the 2025 financial year. Now, to help protect New Zealanders from scams, the government and consumer groups and industries, including online service providers, have joined together to form the New Zealand Anti-Scam Alliance. One of the Alliance initiatives is Safe Harbour for online service providers. Telecommunications companies and the Domain Name Commission have indicated that they may be willing to do more to disrupt suspected scam content. However, they are concerned about potential civil liability if legitimate content may be removed in error. And so to address this concern, Madam Speaker, the bill introduces a statutory defence for online service providers who act in good faith to disrupt suspected scams. Now, the defence will only be available where the provider has reasonable grounds to believe that the scam activity is occurring and certain conditions have been met. If a mistake is made, the bill requires the provider to promptly reverse the action. Madam Speaker, the third element I want to spend a minute talking about is the streamlining of product safety settings. Product safety regulations made under the Fair Trading Act are an effective way to manage risks that a product may pose to the safety of consumers. These regulations are made by exception. Typically, they require the product to comply with a particular version of a technical safety standard. However, safety standards are often revised, meaning that these regulations can quickly become out of date. Some product safety standards referenced in regulations can lag behind updated international versions. For example, the Product Safety Standards Pedal Bicycles regulation of 2000 still point to a superseded 1998 standard, and that kind of lag can lead to New Zealand businesses trying to navigate older legal references while the rest of the world pedals on. To address this, the bill delegates more technical matters to MB. Following consultation, Cabinet will continue to decide whether product safety regulations should be put in place, while MB will have the authority to issue product safety notices that reference the relevant technical standards. Regulations would continue to set which products are regulated, but could authorise MB to specify or update the applicable versions of technical standards. This additional flexibility better ensures that the rules can keep pace with improvements to safety standards while reducing unnecessary compliance costs for business and for maintaining safety. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, I want to make it clear that the bill will come into force in 2 stages. The penalties and enforcement framework starts 6 months after royal assent. That is simply to give everyone time to get ready. The regulator can update guidance and systems, and businesses can have a clear notice of the changed consequences for non-compliance. The underlying conduct rules keep applying during that period. The Scams, Safe Harbour and Product Safety Notice enabling powers start the day after royal assent, and this is because they do not need a transition period and can be implemented immediately. Madam Speaker, this bill modernises enforcement, it strengthens penalties, it supports proactive scam disruption, and it streamlines product safety updates while keeping the core fair trading rules clear and workable, and I commend it to the House.
Irina Williams.
Speaker, let me start by thanking.
Okay. You want me to give a breakdown of what the bill was intended to be in nice, plain, simple language?
I've got the bill here on my right, and there's far too many words for me to make sense of it without looking into what the entire already established legislation is. So, yeah, go on.
Okay, so the Fair
What can you-
Trading Amendment Bill is meant to, it is to amend the Fair Trading Act of 1986 to modernise consumer protection enforcement. Main goal, keep the law efficient as business practice in the digital market evolves, increase penalty for unfair trading conduct, improve enforcement powers and remedy, enable proactive scam disruption, and modernise product safety regulation. Major reforms include shifting from criminal to civil enforcement. Many breaches of the Act move from a mainly criminal regime to a civil liability regime. Serious misconduct remains criminally, including pyramid selling schemes. Serious product safety breaches obstructing enforcement officers. Introducing new civil remedies include declaration of contravention, procurity penalty orders, compensation orders, and injunctions. Increased penalties. Significantly raise the fines and penalties. For major breaches, courts can impose based on the valuation of the transaction 3 times the financial gain or avoided loss, up to $1 million for individuals and $5 million for companies and other entities. Lesser breaches still attract a penalty of up to $60,000 for an individual and $200,000 for a company. Scam disruption safe harbour creates a legal defence for online service providers that act to disrupt suspected schemes. Protections apply if the reason to believe activity is a scam, acts within 28 days, acts in good faith, takes proportional measures, and reverse actions if suspicion no longer exists, intended to encourage faster action against online scam and fraud. Product safety reform allows technical product safety standards to be updated more easily. Regulations can authorise MB's chief executive to issue a product safety notice, aim to keep standards current, align New Zealand with international standards, improve trade flexibility. New civil liabilities, introducing 2 tiers of civil liability. Tier 1 equals serious misleading or unfair conduct. Tier 2, lower level disclosures and compliance breach. Tier 1 includes misleading conduct, false representation, unconscionable conduct, bait advertising, unfair contracts. Tier 2 deals with gift card expiry rules, lay-by disclosure obligations, online trader disclosure requirements, extended warranty disclosures. Court enforcement powers to be expanded within the Commerce Commission, courts and product safety officer. Courts can order compensation, grant injunctions, make declaration of contraventions, impose civil penalties, new penalties for obstructing investigators, providing false or misleading information to regulators. Defence added, create a statutory defence where a business relies reasonably on information from others, took due diligence steps, published advertising without knowing it's misleading. Special defence includes bait advertising, consumer information standards, publisher of advertisements. Time limits. Civil proceedings must generally begin within 3 years of discovery, no later than 10 years after the conduct occurred. God, that's a long time. Okay, other changes. Repealing infringements regime and related regulations. Update several related acts to reflect the new civil liability frameworks, including the Consumer Guarantees Act of 1993, the Motor Sales Act of 2003, the Real Estate Agents Act of 2008, and the Private Security Personal Private Investigators Act of 2010. Commencement of the bill is 6 months after a royal assent. Some revisions, including scam, destruction, and product safety changes, begin immediately after consent. God, that felt like I was a bit we're a bit on a racetrack just there. So, what do you gather from that?
It makes sense. Can you give me an example of civil liability rather than criminal law?
Criminal law, likely to go to prison. Civil law, likely to sit there and have to fork out cash. Civil law can proceed after the person is dead. Criminal law immediately stops upon the person's death. If we want to look at an international example, Donald Trump, civilly liable for rape. Not criminally liable with E. Jean Carroll. But, I mean, that's not related to the Fair Trading Amendment Bill in New Zealand. But it's an example that everyone will know about.
What if they... it just makes me think, that any citizen that punishes you will be let off the hook criminally. That's kind of where my mind goes with it. I know it's civil disputes are, they stay, they hopefully stay out of court kind of thing.
Or civil disputes go down a different path of the court. They can also go to the disputes tribunal. The burden of proof is probable cause, not beyond a reasonable doubt. So that is the different parts that come from civil liability. Criminal liability is beyond a reasonable doubt. So those are differences that come in there. So it's probable cause. So likely if you probably did it, you can probably be civilly made responsible, but may not be criminally made responsible because it didn't meet that burden beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting this to be covering scam prevention, but that makes sense.
Especially with the number of people who sit there and do Facebook scams out there, this would sit down there and actually, possibly could lead to them being prosecuted. Prosecuted either, civilly or potentially criminally. I mean, depending on the scale of it. It's not dealt with through the police. It's dealt with through the Commerce Commission, which typically deals with more civil matters. Because, misleading advertising is no longer ones at the warehouse offering 50% off when it really is only 25% off or something like that.
Yeah. They get you in the door with their up to 50% off, but only a few items that you don't
whereas
see.
online, it's not quite to the same extent. I mean, PB Tech got in trouble with the Commerce Commission quite a number of years back for doing their, weekend sales, but in the lead up to the sales, Price Spy caught them out that they were slowly upping the price. So when the discount came in, it was the same price as what it was 2 weeks beforehand as what was deemed the normal retail price.
Price Spy is great, And yeah, everybody be grateful to the people that make this their business, like that would not be doing anything other than checking stuff like that.
And put it this way, we're doing that to politicians right now.
Because the average consumer might notice it, but they're not always going to go and do the homework. But someone usually catches things out. That's at least one good thing in the digital age.
Okay, let's get on to Arena Williams for Labour's response.
The Minister for his legislative statement, and I look forward to examining this bill, which will be interesting at the Finance and Expenditure Committee, that hard-working committee. This is a bill that might seem ancient and arcane, and it is. Company law, competition law is some of the oldest law that New Zealand has imported from England. It's centuries old, and it's essentially about this. Who gets to enjoy the protections of the corporate veil? Who gets to trade not as themselves, not in their own name, but who gets to transact in a special kind of vehicle that we now call company, a limited partnership, a trust, whatever it is, and what conditions are we going to hold them to, and what will we do when things go wrong? Because the people who get to enjoy the corporate veil are people who have upstanding character, are great members of our community, are building things, creating things, and that is important. But these sorts of fair trading rules are about the conduct we expect of them and what happens when things go wrong. Consumers are worse off, and prices are used in such a way as to diminish competition in any given market. And Labour really supports these stronger consumer protections because ordinary New Zealanders don't go into these trading arrangements with equal power to large companies that they are transacting with. We need strong fair trading laws because every single transaction in the market, whether it was the coffee that you bought at Copperfields earlier or whether it was the subscription on your phone, which has just popped up to a new article on the Herald, we as consumers do not get to enjoy the kind of trading relationship which companies get to enjoy. And so fair trading rules are essential, and it is very important that the penalties for things that go wrong are very clear. This is a bill that we tentatively support because we support both the stronger penalties for misleading conduct that are the civil liabilities. They should be higher, and this bill sets out to make them higher. But we have some questions about removing those criminal liabilities because at the end of the day, this is about the people who get to trade behind a corporate veil. This is about people like you and I, when we transact with businesses, are doing so in our own name, and we are people. And the government has made some policy choices here to take away the punishments for the people that we are transacting with and leave them inside the corporate veil. That is a kind of capitalism which can result in really good outcomes for markets, but can also be punishing for the consumers who end up on the wrong side of it. We also support the stronger enforcement tools for the Commerce Commission and the courts. Consumer law really only works if ordinary people can have confidence in those rules and the regulator bringing prosecutions. We also support the principle that markets only function properly when consumers trust them. And that is the most important part of this, that we show New Zealanders that the government will use its power to get into markets that aren't working properly and to make sure that, in this case, the penalties are appropriate for conduct which is keeping prices high over a sustained period of time. And we know that because of the Commerce Commission's good work in its market studies on industries such as banking and supermarkets, building products and fuel. The things that we are going to be testing very closely in Select Committee, though, are around those penalties, which shift them, as the Minister says, to easier to enforce civil penalties. So we'd like to test that. Are these, in fact, easier to enforce? Will they be a sufficient deterrent if there are not criminal liabilities which attach to them? We'll also be testing whether the Commerce Commission has the resources and expertise and enforcement capacity needed to make these reforms meaningful in practice. This has been raised constantly in the Select Committees that are considering the Minister's other suite of reforms around the Commerce Commission's structure. Many submitters in that forum are raising questions about whether the Commerce Commission can continue to be the courageous litigator that this government first envisioned when it took office. The next thing is whether the safe harbour provisions for online scam disruption, which we support, contain sufficient safeguards around civil liberties. Are we going to collect the wrong people in this net, and are we holding companies to account for then impinging on their rights? Ordinary legitimate users going to be wrongly swept up in that new power. The next point we'll be testing carefully is whether consumers will have clear, accessible and timely pathways for redress if online platforms act incorrectly around that, and whether the shift towards civil liability around that regime is the right one. And finally, the product safety standards. These are important to me. As a mum of two kids growing up in a very changing environment where they have access to all sorts of things which are not from the local store and not from people that I can take issues up with, it's really important that we get this right. MB should have a greater role, but at the end of the day, the buck should stop with the Minister. That's what we'll be testing in Select Committee, and I commend it there.
The question is...
Well, that's going to be interesting with the saying go, the buck stops with the Minister.
Plain English?
I don't know if there's plain English in what's just been said just then. The buck stops with the Minister, but I mean, the Minister's not even there. He's having to have someone else do his work on his behalf. Yeah, I'm not sure what else can be added from that apart from, by the sounds of it, going to sit there and like it. Now, the interesting part is, he hasn't been able to say much, but now, you've probably seen the website Scammer Payback. And where a guy called Pierogi sits down there and trolls these Indian scam centres and sit there and do that. I wonder, under a legal New Zealand context, would that person be legally allowed to do what's doing in there?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to Ricardo Mendes March and see what's coming up from the Greens.
That the motion be agreed to. Call Ricardo Menendez March. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Green Party is supporting the Fair Trading Amendment Bill, and we acknowledge the Minister's legislative statement as well. And I remember when this bill was first announced by the Minister and Nicola Willis, that they paid tribute to Consumer New Zealand's campaign of Price It Right. And I wanted to acknowledge that campaign by Consumer New Zealand and the advocacy that they have done for consumers, because this bill does take on one of the recommendations of this campaign. In that campaign, for example, they called for a mandatory supermarket pricing accuracy code, automatic compensation where shoppers were overcharged, clear disclosure of consumer rights in store and online, and tougher penalties and infringement notice powers like those used in Australia. And it is that last one in particular that this bill is taking on. It is obviously not the only thing that this bill is doing, but it is carrying on that recommendation. That campaign that led to this bill acknowledged that consumers locally were missing out on millions of dollars collectively due to issues relating to pricing errors. And one of the things that this bill will do is increase the maximum penalties for breaches of the Fair Trading Act. But I think more importantly, it moves it from a criminal liability regime to a civil liability regime. That in of itself also does a range of things like changing the burden of being able to carry out these consequences, and it actually will make it easier for consumers to take on big corporates. The previous speaker rightfully noted that ultimately we live in an economy where there's often a power imbalance of the reality that everyday individuals may not have the means to take on huge corporations such as supermarkets, for example, when they are seeing that there are systemic breaches or, for example, pricing issues that may lead to consumers being left worse off. And strengthening the fair trading legislation, the Act, will actually be particularly beneficial towards this. I think what will be important in the Select Committee stage, which the Finance and Expenditure Committee will take on, will be to also assess what else may be needed. I know that submitters may talk about, for example, what other avenues the Minister may need to consider, particularly I hope we hear from, and I'm sure we'll hear from Consumer New Zealand on this, because I assume that the reason they had a range of recommendations beyond tougher penalties is that ultimately we needed a broader range of interventions. The tougher penalties will be good, and they may act as a deterrent, but I think that also will need to be tested at the Select Committee stage in terms of what evidence we've seen overseas of where there are these civil liability regimes that whether they have acted as a deterrent and seen the sort of evidential basis for this, because ultimately, I guess what we could end up having is the reality that these interventions may not be on their own enough, and it would be good to get reassurance from the Minister as to whether, for example, there are other pieces of work in the pipeline to address the other recommendations being put by the likes of Consumer New Zealand, who the ministers acknowledged in their press release. We also welcome the changes to product safety standards and basically the delegation of those powers to MB. And we note that currently those can only be made and updated by the government on the recommendation of the Minister, but ultimately MB does have the resources, the tools, and ideally the expertise to be able to do this well. Obviously, we hope that these areas of work carried out by MB under this piece of legislation will be well resourced so that that work can actually be done adequately. And with the state of our public services, obviously, as with any sort of additional powers, whether we support them or not, given to a government agency or ministry, we have concerns that adequate resourcing and equipment of people with the expertise and the ability to carry out the new provisions of and powers of this bill can be done to the degree that we need to. But like I said, overall, this bill does very much align with our Green Party policies and principles. We look forward to hearing from submitters on their experiences with particularly supermarkets, I would say, which have been in the spotlight a lot, and the contributions around whether they think that these new penalties and stronger penalties will act as a deterrent, and what else we may need to do to have a system where consumers have a fair deal when it comes to dealing with large corporations.
Oh, I lost the audio. What have I done?
Oh, my
Were you
decided to
mute?
change my audio source again.
Happens.
Sorry, yeah. So no, it decided to change me to XSplit Broadcaster instead of the webcam's microphone, which it's it's been doing that a lot lately. Yeah. So your 2 cents worth.
Who was MB? Was it Mike Bravo or November Bravo? I didn't understand who he was referring to.
MB is Ministry of Business and Innovation.
Okay. No, I like that they support it and the way they support it. They hadn't mentioned what. Sorry, that was Labour speaking before. She said that it's like in some ways will protect the corporate entity more than the consumer, but
It's not meant to protect the
No, looking-
the intention is not to protect the corporate entity, but yes, the
Yeah.
way the current law is balanced, that it can come across that way, you know. And I do know there's some people out there who hate the fact that limited liability companies exist, because it does kind of like protect the transaction. I recently went for a dispute where the person was sending me threatening emails stating that I was misusing my limited liability company. And but completely misunderstood what was happening. It was like made an assumption that is opposite to what is correct, and he decided the wrong assumption was right, and then proceeded to harass based on the wrong assumption.
Yeah.
And yeah. So
that's kind of like confirmation bias. We expect people to do that, and then we think we see what we see.
Yeah.
And
we want to have it happen. Like, I mean, and the same thing happened in the. I got threatened to be audited by the IRT, and it's just like, great, get them to waste $5,000 auditing my business. What are you going to sit there and do? Tell them a bunch of lies that to sit down there and get that audit? Because IRD don't like sitting down there auditing people for people's personal vendetta and grudges.
Suspicion, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, they've got better things to do with their time, such as like chasing tax evasion.
Yeah. Overall, looking over the bill, it appears to be made in good faith, of course.
I think the intention of it is to be in good faith. But I can understand it as someone who's probably, as you say, probably not quite as conversed in what the legislation is on that one. I can see that. I think the intention is right, but the execution. It'll be interesting to see just how this all pans out. Yeah. Okay, let's get on to MP Todd Stevenson. Just a moment while
Todd Stevenson.
Madam Speaker, look, I rise on behalf of ACT to speak on the Fair Trading Amendment Bill. It looks like this bill is getting support across the House to get to the Select Committee, so that's very, very positive. As the Minister's already outlined, this is going to update the Fair Trading Act of 1986. It's a wee while ago, 1986. And it's really got 3 areas that it's going to focus on. As we've already heard from previous speakers, there's some reforms around penalties, some reform around penalty and enforcement, upping some of the penalties. We've got this safe harbour provision, particularly around scam prevention. I think that's very, very important in this modern age. And then we've got some streamlining of safety settings and some other changes. I'm a member of the Finance and Expenditure Select Committee, so I do look forward to hearing submitters on this bill, but I commend it to the House.
God, it sounds like a short and sweet speech, but it definitely sits there and sums it up. Thank goodness Todd has mentioned about the scam prevention techniques. Yeah, because that has been you know, that has been something that has been missed from the other submitters. So I'm glad he's actually sat there and mentioned that. Quite good and vital. Yeah. Any other comments you want to add?
The Fair Trading Act that we have is obviously quite good. I know there is a number of legislation that we can be proud of in New Zealand.
Now, here's something that you'll probably have because of where you work with the trains. Do you think, have you had people who sat there and said, my bus didn't turn up and it's a $2.50 bus fare. Metlink should pay for me to have a taxi.
I don't know that I've ever had anyone actually say it. I have asked my coordination center if we can provide a taxi because of an error. Sorry, I'm just having a driver issue on the computer. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, my camera appears to freeze. Yeah, like I have used that. That's kind of it's not something you want people to know just because minor issue, but the policy is to get people, for the service to be as intended.
Yeah,
and to be reliable.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot online where, like, a train service has been delayed or cancelled. They go, "Oh, so where's my megabucks compensation at 2,000%?" And that's something that kind of like, well, actually, that's public transport. But is
my camera frozen though?
Yeah, I think your camera may have frozen.
Yes, just gonna. It's not a flattering frame.
You're doing the Navy salute.
Tried to switch to my phone as the input source, so.
We'll get on to the next speech, David Wilson.
Yeah, go for it.
Your camera.
Because one time we did send like 8 passengers to the Wairarapa by taxi from Upper Hutt because something had happened, and they were at the point where they'd almost organized their own ride because I'm standing around for half an hour, like while I was just actually had finished my shift, but I was still in uniform for a bit, so just trying to help them out, reassure them.
Oh, as you do, because you're a decent staff member. Yeah. Okay. Let's get on to David Wilson.
Dr. David Wilson.
Madam Speaker, I commend the Fair Trading Amendment Bill to the House. Very strongly behind having strong fair trading rules. I would just add to what the Minister spoke to around scams being around 200 million. My information is actually they're more like 10 times that. So this amendment is very much welcomed. And it's seeking to balance those power imbalances with fairness and stronger practices around how we judge incurrences, and it increases penalties against those incurrences. However, there's a couple of things that we'll be looking forward to talking to at Select Committee. One is around the civil liability, section 41G, where we're moving from 2 subclauses, A and B, to A, B, C, D, E, G, F, right through to N, which are all around defences for those in contravention. In other words, those that have caused the harm. So it's a very big extension, and we're really interested to see how that rolls out. Similarly, with the safe harbour, are we going to get that fair balance between those two competing things? Are we looking after the consumers, and are we balancing those imbalances that often occur between large corporates and individuals? Madam Speaker, we commend the direction on the tin to prohibit misleading and deceptive conduct. So we look forward to upholding these ideals through Select Committee, and we commend this bill to the House.
Tom.
How's your camera coming along?
I don't know why it's related to an AMD driver timeout issue. So I'm sure if I turned everything off and on again, it would fix it. I could also use my mobile phone, my pocket PC, as a substitute camera.
Sorry, I've just got to. Yeah, no, I've spelt correctly. No, someone just posted on one of my memes. So this is a meme. While we're having Ray taking his time to actually sit down there and work out his camera, I posted this on. So Nicola Willis did a press conference earlier today, and she mentioned the fact that Labor's $20 fair cap policy is not needed for the wealthy people of Martinborough who catch the train to Wellington. Well, Martinborough, unfortunately, never ended up getting its railway station. It was quite a promise that even Prime Minister Joseph Ward, might have been a bit earlier, promised to sit there and have it be built. But unfortunately, the 1953 national government scarpered the line being built by closing the Greyhound branch line, which ended up being the proposed route to be going off there. So we have a picture here of Nicola Willis and Martinborough asking the Mayor of South Wairarapa District Council, Dane Fran Wild, famous for the member in charge of the homosexual law reform bill, hey Fran, where is the Martinborough train station? And Fran goes, we don't have one. Because probably Nicola Willis probably wouldn't actually sit there and realise no railway line actually goes to Martinborough. Now, they do have a bus service, and you do have to transfer. And fair capping will be quite great for that particular sort of thing. But besides the point, I think that was just something that had to be done on there. So, how's your camera coming along, Ray?
I will unplug it and plug it back in, but I might need to close the browser and open it again.
So should we get on to the next speaker while you make that decision?
Yes.
Okay, let's kick that off. Let's get off to Tom Rutherford.
Rutherford.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. One of the biggest frustrations that people have is when they pick something up from the supermarket shelf, for example, and they see one price there, and then they take it to the till and they see something completely different, Madam Speaker. And so for once, we are changing what is taking place, Madam Speaker. We are increasing... Oh, Reuben Davidson doesn't like this change. We'll remember that. People in Christchurch East will remember that. He wants you to have a different price at the till than you do on the shelf. He just said it across the House, Madam Speaker. We're changing it. Maximum penalty for breaches for breaching the Fair Trading Act are going from $600,000 up to potentially $5 million. We're going to hold these people to account. I commend it to the House.
Well, that's all great here. Now, I'm not sure what's happened with Ray here, but it seems to be saying no camera.
No camera.
So, while we're having the lovely voice of Mr. Ray Ching, we'll have to pretend what you're looking and what your facial expressions are. What's your rate about Tom Rutherford's... What the fuck?
I don't know. He sounds in support. I am a little distracted. I'll be right back.
We'll just see what's actually happening in the House here. Sorry.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Well, that's quite weird. They only had 6 speeches.
Fair Trading Amendment Bill, first reading.
The question is that the Fair Trading Amendment Bill be considered by the Finance and Expenditure Committee. Those of that opinion, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Call on Government Order of the Day number.
So while we're waiting for Ray to come back, it's quite interesting that actually, because Ray's technically not on the stream at the moment. He's been rebooted. It's always a lot of fun. He always has a lot of fun with his cameras when he's on here. I'm not sure if you can hear what's being said on there, but yeah, sometimes a camera his one seems to like to work very well and then decides to spit the dummy. It's not weird that speech only had that bill only had 6 speeches in it, because normally most bills typically tend to have 11 for first reading, 12 for second, third reading, and well, committee, the House can be always very interesting of that. And yeah, you are quite right there, Jason. That was quick. That was so unexpected. And I mean, I'd love to hear what Ray's got to actually say on that, but I'm not sure whether we continue waiting for Ray or where we move on. He hasn't run me, so that's definitely probably telling me something. He's probably rebooting his whole computer, knowing what's happened, because from what he's described, like his computer's just like spat out a driver that just doesn't make sense. So, you know, and these annoying things do happen from time to time with computers. So let's move on to another bill. This one is the Taxation Measures, Budget Measures Bill number 3. And we'll kick off with the Minister.
And please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. This bill is set down for second reading.
Appropriation 2025-26 Supplementary Estimates Bill, first reading.
This bill is set down for second reading next sitting day.
Madam Speaker,
Honourable Simon Watts.
I present a legislative statement on the Taxation Budget Measures Bill number 3.
That legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the Parliament website.
Madam Speaker,
Honourable Simon Watts.
I move that the Taxation Budget Measures Bill number 3 be now read a first time. Madam Speaker, this government is committed to building a tax system that is not only fair but works for businesses and taxpayers. It should be simpler for businesses and individuals to navigate. It should have lower compliance costs and strengthen the integrity of the tax system. The first item in the bill introduces a ceiling on donation tax credit entitlements. The charitable sector does a lot for the community, especially in tough economic times. We continue to support the work they do, and part of that lies in ensuring that the policy settings are targeted to achieve the most value for money for the government's contribution through the donation tax credit. The credit aims to encourage and reinforce charitable giving. However, the government's view is that the current open-ended tax credit does not provide value for money. Research shows that the increase in donations as a result of the tax credit is likely to be lower than the cost of the tax credit itself. The bill therefore introduces a maximum entitlement of donations eligible for a donation tax credit to the lower of $100,000 or the donor's taxable income. The vast majority of donors will not be affected. To be clear, this proposal does not stop people from donating as much as they like. It merely places a cap on the amounts that are eligible to receive a tax credit. This is about giving the donating public confidence in the system and helping to assure the future of charitable giving. The bill also supports New Zealand's aviation sector by exempting aircraft leases from the non-residence contractor tax. In the industry, and in the airline industry more specifically, operating leases have become more common owing to the global supply constraints and increasing global demand. It is a cost-effective way for New Zealand airline operators to acquire aircraft and aircraft parts. But our non-resident contractors tax is discouraging offshore aircraft suppliers from leasing to New Zealand. This is affecting the competitiveness of our companies. Affordable access to aircraft and parts is essential for economic growth and connectivity. If we lose access to aircraft, passengers and freight, New Zealand and our economy will take a hit. That is why this bill makes a sensible change to exempt aircraft operating leases from the non-resident contractor tax. It's about supporting more economic activity and encouraging more investment in our aviation sector, not discouraging it. The bill also makes important changes to the rules around shareholder loans. We must always stay alert to the integrity risks in our tax system, especially when people are trying to avoid paying the tax that they should. Last year, Inland Revenue consulted on a growing number of issues of shareholders not repaying loans that they have taken from their own companies. While many loans are used appropriately, others can be used to strip assets from the company or generate other integrity concerns. That is why we are proposing that if a company is removed from the company's register, outstanding company loans will become taxable after 6 months. This strengthens existing rules that tax loans when they are forgiven by providing a clear and certain timing rule that will support tax compliance and improve Inland Revenue's ability to collect tax. These changes will apply to companies removed from the register after 4 December. Madam Speaker, the last set of changes amend and simplify the Working for Families scheme. We want to make it easier for people to understand and to be clear on their correct entitlement. The rules for calculating the family scheme income currently are complex, making it difficult for many families to understand and apply correctly. Part of the application process requires people to calculate their family scheme income, which involves deciding whether a range of income adjustments apply to their circumstances. The proposed amendments streamline these requirements by removing several income adjustments. It is about ensuring Kiwis who need support are getting what they are entitled to. We're also proposing to simplify the residence requirements for the working for families. All too often, families moving overseas fall into debt because they have struggled to understand the resident requirements for entitlement to working for families. Currently, there are different requirements for the principal caregiver and for the dependent child, leading to inconsistent outcomes for families in similar circumstances. We propose simplifying the residence requirements by requiring both the principal caregiver and dependent child to ordinarily reside and be physically present in New Zealand. This does not mean that people cannot travel. What it does mean is that families can travel overseas for up to 6 weeks at a time without affecting their working for families eligibility. Those travelling for longer and for specified situations such as family emergencies will be able to seek an exemption in order to continue to be eligible for those payments. Madam Speaker, this bill will strengthen our tax system. I therefore commend this bill to the House.
Welcome back.
Hey,
Yeah, we jumped on to the next bill. It's definitely going to get into some very interesting parts here.
yeah.
But should we kick it off?
Yeah, carry on. Looking over the bill now, much more easy to read than the previous one.
Well, probably because it has as what off the Crown, Prime Minister Michael Wilson said, numbers don't lie. So the taxation measures, budget measures bill number 3 sits down there and implements tax and welfare related measures announced in the 2026 budget. It amends the Income Tax Act of 2007, the Student Loan Scheme Act of 2011, and the Tax Administration Act of 1994. The main measures of the bill is donation tax credit caps, introducing a cap on their maximum qualifying donations as a person who donates $100,000 per annum, and the maximum annual credit they can get back is $33,333.33, and this will apply to donations on or after starting of tax year. It will be starting on the 1st of April 2027, so that will be for tax year ending tax year 2028. Now, here's something I didn't know about: aircraft leasing tax exemptions. So you learn something new every day. Removing non-resident contractor tax from dry lease of aircraft and aircraft parts, introducing an income tax exemption for non-residents earning from those leases, aim to reduce costs for New Zealand airlines and aviation businesses and improve access to aircraft parts and global constraints. And these apply starting from tax year 1st April 2026. Now, here's something and this is actually a very good thing to do. We don't quite have this such as a big problem in New Zealand, but this is a big problem overseas. So it is shareholder loans. So it's commonly known for a rich bastard, and I would sit there and do that, such as Elon Musk, to borrow money instead of paying out a dividend to avoid income tax. And what they do is in a form of a shareholder loan. So they go, and this is one way how the rich bypass the tax system. And I'm actually glad that, the National Party's tightening up. Now, it isn't quite as gnarly as it needs to be, but it's tightening up the rules around shareholder loans when companies are removed from the company's registrar. So that is usually when you have not filed your annual return and you have gone out of business. If a shareholder director still owes money to a removed company, the loan is treated as discharged 6 months after deregistration. This triggers tax consequences under the financial arrangement rules and applies to companies removed from the tax register on or after the 4th of December 2025, which would also account to roughly approximately when that would come in from the budget. So if you currently owe your business $100,000 in loans and you sit down and you get struck off the company's office, you'll be having to pay tax on that $100,000 to be treated as income. Okay, let's get to working for families. So it simplifies any changes of the working for families, removes several low-risk or outdated adjustments for working for families calculator, removal inclusions of some overseas and pensions, certain exempt salary and wages, some retirement scheme adjustments, and main income equalisation adjustments, increase the minimums threshold, raise the other payment threshold from $5,000 to $8,000, and order in council flexibility, allow some families' income adjustments to be activated by order in council, give the government flexibility to apply certain adjustments year by year. Residency, presence, and rules for working for families. And this is actually quite good, especially when the rules aren't quite in line with when the child and the parent aren't in the same category. Replace older residency test with a stronger physical presence requirement in New Zealand. Requires principal caregiver ordinarily reside in New Zealand and child ordinarily to reside in New Zealand, which that makes sense. Both are physically present in New Zealand during the entitlement period. Transitional residents and some temporary visa holders are excluded. And also introducing overseas travellers, introduce a 42-day, 6-week temporary absent allowance. Longer absence still required if it's a natural disaster, crisis event, government service overseas, such as the military, spouse, sporting or cultural activities, medical treatment, serious illness, injury or death, or overseas court proceedings. Well, yep. And also there is a protection for refugees brought to New Zealand to remain under the special rules scheme and to apply the working for families, apply from tax year 2027-2028. So that will come in the next financial year of tax year ending 2028. The student loan changes is move powers relating to an order into council into the student loan scheme 2011. Relocate a list of statutes dealing with tax exemptions, salaries and wages, and repeal section 225C because its powers are transferred elsewhere. The commencement date mostly to happen on April Fool's Day 2027. However, some tax provisions come in a bit earlier, such as the aircraft leasing gets dated back to the 1st of April 2026. And the shareholders loan/company deregistration provision comes in the day after royal assent, which it's already now had royal assent, considering that would have got royal assent probably by around King's birthday. How do you take that one?
Well thought out and complicated.
It is tax law. I mean, you can't expect miracles out of tax laws.
I'm reading it.
So you're reading the bill on the computer at the moment.
Yeah.
Did my summary kind of sit down there and sum up what you kind of were reading online as well, or when you're reading the bill?
It's a good summary. How did you come up with it?
ChatGPT.
Fair enough.
Yeah, sat down there and put in the words of, give me a bullet point summary.
Yeah.
Got to use AI to the tools that are available from time to time. I know some people sit there and hate that, but sometimes you got to sit there and, these tools have a purpose and they pay themselves off at times for doing certain things.
You seem to be using it responsibly by providing the correct input.
You cannot ask ChatGPT to create an image of David Seymour force-feeding the kid rotten food, and it will not create it because it is deemed child abuse.
Very good.
Yeah. Let's get on to the next speaker, tax expert, Dr. Deborah Russell.
The question is that the motion be agreed to.
Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Dr. Deborah Russell.
Madam Speaker, this budget and this tax bill are in some ways more notable for what they don't do than for what they do actually do.
That's right.
So we've already heard from around the budget, though there were some interesting measures in it, that in fact those at the bottom of the heap are getting nothing from this budget. In fact, they're getting more pain. We know that's coming through in subsequent bills. So a whole lot of stuff announced, but also a whole lot of gaps in this budget. And actually that's the same in an odd way with this tax bill. Now, the government announced a whole suite of tax measures today. It announced a whole set of changes around charities, around and not-for-profits, and that is sitting in today's tax bill. It announced some work on non-resident contractors tax exemption for aircraft leasing, and that's in this tax bill. It announced some work on company loans to shareholders, and that's in this tax bill. It announced some changes to the family scheme income, and that is in this tax bill. But then there was a whole lot of material, a whole lot of things that the government announced that's sitting in the announcements around taxation and the budget announcements that is now sitting on the excellent website that the policy team at the Inland Revenue put together. There were to be some changes to the Foreign Investment Fund rules have been announced. But they're not in this tax bill. There were some changes to the financial arrangement rule to support migrants, but they're not in this tax bill either. There was some work on modernising non-resident contractors tax, not in this tax bill. There's some work been announced on the Research and Development Tax Incentive, not in this tax bill. There's been something announced around changes to fringe benefit taxes around vehicles, not in this tax bill. And they've announced some changes to the thin cap rules for foreign-owned banking groups, also not in this tax bill. So that's interesting, that this government has announced a whole lot of tax measures, but it's not announcing consultation on them or anything like that. It's not putting them in this tax bill. Why announce those measures on budget day if it wasn't going to put them in the budget legislation? So that is, I think, a real gap. In previous years, the government has put substantial tax measures into the the budget tax bill. This year, well, there's some stuff in there, but not a lot. Suggests that this government might be starting to run scared of us on committee stages. But then I do want to talk about some of the issues that are in this bill. Now, at this stage, the 4 measures that are sitting in this tax bill, the 4 groups of measures, look fairly sensible. So there are some issues around charities donation. I just note for the Minister's benefit, since he didn't seem to know it at that stage, that tax credits for charities have never been open-ended. They've always been limited by an individual donor's tax paid income. Nevertheless, there's some interesting work there. Some good work, some sensible work on the aircraft leases. It will make, it's removing a sensible barrier, sensibly removing a barrier around aircraft leasing that's been creating problems for our airlines. Some interesting work on shareholder loans. These have been a way of shareholders perhaps avoiding, certainly don't want to say evading, but certainly deferring taxation to the point that it is not paid at all. We can characterise that with various words. And there are some changes to the family scheme income, so changes to the way that family scheme income is calculated. At this stage, this party, the Labour Party, will be supporting this bill through the first and second readings. But come the committee stage, there are some questions we do want to ask about all those measures and the impact on taxpayers, the impact on the government's fiscals, and some quite technical questions around some of the things which haven't been done in them. For example, on the shareholder loans, I'm puzzled as to why it has been done via, addressing has been done via the financial arrangements rules rather than via the dividends rules. It's a choice, but maybe not the best one. So at this stage, we are supporting this bill, but we do know that this bill is a bill of gaps. The Honourable.
Do you like Deborah Russell's point of tax deferral to the point where it never gets paid?
Yeah. It's interesting. One of your explanations earlier, but the previous bill we were reading with the fair trade had thought about the idea of it might be limited liability companies, but example, a small business doesn't want all of the liability to be on the person who started the business or the primary shareholder, because you're a small business, you might not fail. I mean, you might not succeed. It's good that you can declare bankruptcy and have limited liability. That makes sense, but it is also, of course, used in other ways to just avoid paying tax. And I know some people who say like, I don't like paying tax because I don't agree with what the council spent it on and stuff like that. And if they've got many properties, they may put their income into places where it doesn't have to just be taxed. And it's really frustrating.
And I gather you're talking about on that one as rates bills, but yes, I know what you're saying.
Anyway.
Yeah, they don't like where the taxes are necessarily going, so they try to find ways to avoid it. But
so that there are measures in place being put in place to address some of these things. That's really cool. I'm glad she's mentioning that. But apparently there's more to the story. So I brought up IRD website, but I not doing all my homework at one go. Some budget tax.
So what's coming from the from the tax man or the tax woman?
No, not sure. Not sure. Not sure. I'm not doing all my homework at once. So I've got a list of things. Budget 2026 information sheets. I think that's what they were referencing.
Yep.
Then there's also budget website. Yeah. No. Sorry, team. I was only asked to be a panelist this afternoon, so I'm not. No. I've done all my homework.
Like, and it was like after like the third person I tried after Frankie let me know at the last minute. Well, no, she shouldn't let me last minute. She let me know on Friday that she ended up double booking herself.
Yeah, so it's educational evening for me. I do like the way the previous speaker
Deborah Russell. Oh, she's.
I like the way she handled that. Yeah.
Oh, she's
use of time.
she's a tax law expert. Because like that's what she taught tax law at Massey University before she became an MP, and she for multiple years stood for the Labour Party in the national safe seat of the Rangitikei electorate. I think that was when she was based in Palmerston North, but I do know that they helicoptered her into New Lynn, where she has made it her new homes ever since. She used to be Auntie Gwen's local MP, and Auntie Gwen's first female local MP. Quite weird to actually say that she was Auntie Gwen's first female local MP after having Rex Mason, then Jonathan Hunt, then David Cunliffe for years.
Right.
Yeah. Auntie Gwen, when she was alive, lived in the electorate of New Lynn. So yeah, but I mean, you've never met her. You've only met her sister, better known as my grandmother.
Right.
Yeah.
Foreign investment fund changes. The changes seek to reduce tax barriers to better attract and retain skills and capital. All New Zealanders who use their revenue account for their unlisted foreign shares so that they can pay tax only on realized gains and actual dividends received. This was previously limited to recent migrants.
Oh God, you find some peculiar random shit on the IRD's website.
Ensure that founders, active investors, and other key employees could continue to use the attributable FAF income method, even if their stake in the business falls below 10% during business growth. So but this one's actually more pages than the other info sheets. So yeah, I'm not the tax expert, but certainly.
No, we'll leave that to Deborah Russell. Okay, let's get on to my local MP, who has to pay taxes to two sovereign governments per annum, being known as the United States and New Zealand, Julianne Genter.
Tēnā koe, Madam Speaker. The budget obviously doesn't have a lot to console New Zealanders who are struggling with higher cost of living, fossil fuel crisis, and staring down rising unemployment over the next few years. And we would have liked to see more than that, than what has been announced. And there's certainly much more that we could be doing to help people through these difficult times. This taxation bill has some interesting and very limited changes to the tax system. Overall, they appear at first reading, and we only received this bill in the last hour or so, so we haven't had much time to get across all of the detail. But at first glance, it appears that the changes are reasonable and marginally positive. I mean, a long way from structurally making a fairer tax system, which we would like to see in the Green Party. But introducing a ceiling on donation tax credits seems very, very reasonable to us. And it was interesting just now, very quickly, trying to skim read the regulatory impact statements, which only were just tabled, so I only had that 8 minutes of the previous speakers to look at them, but it did say that the existing donation tax credit settings result in Crown expenditure of around $350 million per year. That is quite a lot. And the empirical evidence is mixed on whether such tax credit is cost effective in encouraging charitable giving. And like personally, in my view, and my family, we participate in charitable giving, but we'd much rather see a lot of the core services that are excellently provided by charities, that should be more directly funded from the Crown and not rely on the whims of those who happen to have enough money. And we're seeing like charitable organizations that do really important work, helping people who are homeless, I think like City Mission, DCM in Wellington, Kibosh. There are heaps and heaps of charitable organizations in Rongotai and Wellington that do amazing work. And they are all struggling because people are struggling with higher cost of living, unemployment, and reduced investment. And that's precisely the time at which those charities need more Crown funding. And I don't think we're going to find that buried in the budget. So. But I do think it's fair enough that we shouldn't be giving people spending that core money. It would be great if this $350 million that maybe the Crown is going to get back from putting a ceiling on the donation tax credits, it would be great if that was going to charitable organizations, funding them so that they can help the people who are really struggling as a result of the government's policies. I doubt that's going to be a line in the budget. Again, we only just saw the budget recently, so we're still digging through it to understand. One of the other questions that we have in the Green Party, while we don't have issues with most of the what's proposed in this bill, there isn't, like the company loans to shareholders makes sense. The working for families changes seem actually kind of sensible and compassionate. And aircraft leasing, makes sense. But there are some changes to the student loan scheme, amendments to the Student Loan Scheme Act 2011. So it's unclear what changes those are making just from the summary of the bill. So we'll have to speak more to that in further debates today. And of course, we would expect, because this is happening under urgency, that there will be plenty of time in the committee stages for scrutiny, because of course, this bill is not going to select committee to get the normal scrutiny that it should do in our democratic system. So that is the Green Party's position. Support at first reading. We expect to have a fulsome debate in the committee stages and be able to dig into everything that's happening. And finally, I'll just say, obviously what's lacking in this taxation bill are the substantial changes that are needed to create a fair tax system in New Zealand, which would mean more revenue for productive investment in things that actually make people's lives better, that support them in meaningful work that helps build our country, protect our environment, protect our climate, and electrify, because all of that is common sense.
How do you think the performance of my local MP went?
Quite good. Very serious.
Yeah, it does feel weird hearing Julian say, well, it makes a bit of sense about the aircraft changes in there. Considering a lot of people, when they hear Greens, they think, oh, they're going to be anti-aircraft. But, Julian does actually have her head screwed on, despite many people sit there and struggle to believe with that. And I wonder if it's the aircraft leasing is so that, so actually let's, possibly we have electric aircraft, that sort of stuff potentially come into the country as well. And to also keep those regional links going, because that's something that Julian Genta is very big about, is trying to make sure we keep our regional links alive, because many different parts of New Zealand are car dependent, and she is the transport spokesperson for the Greens.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Yeah, when I was browsing the bill to find the changes to student loan, I found it difficult to see what the actual change was, but I'm also trying to
even
focus on the
ChatGPT
screen.
couldn't even find it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's like, I think it's just an amendment to a section.
Yeah.
Because that actually affects you, because you've got a student loan.
I know that paid off. Gosh, when did I finish that? Maybe July last year, actually, or I don't recall anymore. But I've been free of all my tax for a little while, and now I'm paying 10% to KiwiSaver each paycheck.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's a good sign about paying 10% to KiwiSaver. God, heck, gee, you're definitely you're tipping up just as much as what some of the MPs are tipping into KiwiSaver.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, some of the MPs tip in 10% or 10% by their choice.
Yeah, it made sense. But definitely noticed.
When you can afford it, yeah. And in your situation, that actually makes sense because you were paying 12% in student loans. So you're now not paying that 12% in student loans. So you can easily afford to pay 10. So if you're paying 10% to KiwiSaver, where you were previously paying 12% student loans, that's not much of a change to your budget because you've been living with that adjusted budget for quite some time.
Yeah. I'm certainly making enough to save well, but I've been enjoying making enough to spend well and just trying to find that new middle ground. I'd love to just eat the cheapest food, but it's
that's a different story at the moment anyway. It's pretty damn difficult to sit there and I got to admit, I did splash out recently. I bought a packet of sausages off another stallholder at the market. It's you got to support. You got to support everyone. Support your fellow market goers. But it was $17 for the packet. Fuck, they were nice. They were, very up there. But $17 for a packet of premium sausages, and I only had 4 in the packet. But they were quite thick sausages, so they weren't, hot dog size. Even though I did actually make them into hot dogs, ironically. But yeah. Okay.
I mean, yes, like the cost of land is one of the greatest flow-on effects, I think, because working for an hour to buy premium sausages makes sense. Working for a quarter of your week just to pay for your rent seems a bit high.
Yeah. Well, and some people it's half, if not more. So yeah. Okay. Let's get on to Todd Stevenson.
Todd Stevenson.
Madam Speaker, this is very exciting. My first speech in the budget debate or the budget bills. And I want to thank Minister Watts for bringing this bill to the House, the Taxation Budget Bill number 3, no less. And look, it's going to be very exciting to work through this bill in all stages, and let's get these changes in place. And the Minister's already outlined what them are. But alongside this, this really is fixing what matters on this side of the House and government. There's been some other great announcements around simplifying the fringe benefit tax rules. That is going to help tradies, small businesses across New Zealand. Very, very exciting. And the foreign investment fund rules, again, announced alongside this. Time and time again, we've heard about how this is actually holding people back. And so the changes of listing the threshold, which has been announced alongside, from 50,000 to 100,000 is excellent. So I want to congratulate the Minister on all of the measures he put through in this budget, and I commend this bill to the House.
Yep, I understand where you're coming from, Jason. He seems to be the person who seems to keep speaking for the ACT Party. But I have to be honest, I'd rather have him than, say, Simon Court, who sat down there in the gas bill and made a misleading statement to state that all supermarket bread is baked with gas. And I have confirmation that 3 supermarkets in Wellington use electricity to bake their breads. And I would be not confident with some of these businesses that also sell swapper bottles to have naked flames in their premises. Something that's required if you use gas. Yeah. So, yeah, unfortunately, better the devil we know than the devil we don't know. Which MP would we prefer? Yeah, any comments on Todd's 2 cents worth?
No, he was very quick. It seems like he referenced other things that aren't in the amendment bill, talking about the budget.
He mentioned other stuff that, as Deborah Russell said earlier, are not in the bill, but were announced at the budget, such as the changes to fringe benefit tax.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, let's get on to a guy called Dr. David Wilson, the MP.
Madam Speaker.
Dr. David Wilson. Can I just remind members before the member starts that this is the taxation bill. It's not a general budget debate speech.
And we'll be talking about tax. Taxation Budget Measures Bill number 3, 2026. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The government is looking to operate a predictable revenue system, and the current main tax bases, personal income tax, company tax and broad-based tax, already are the main income earners for us. And in a situation where we are returning to surplus and rebuilding the economy, we're just like some of the people that are maybe still with us, looking at parliamentary TV, to kind of be aware of what the alternative is here. So far we have a policy-free zone from across the aisle. Right. The only thing they've come up with is a capital gains tax, where they're going to turn that into, what are they? Hospital, private, what is it? Yeah, anyway, it's completely incoherent. And then across this side, we've got the approach to killing innovation and taxing success, otherwise known as the green envy taxes, right? The Taxpayers Union, not usually our friends necessarily, but boy, they've done a good piece of work here. So...
A point of order.
Oh, point of order, of course.
Suggest to the chair, but I think when we have a government member waving around documents from another party, we're far from the bill being debated. You can sit down.
Actually, that's my call. And I did, before the member stood up, I did remind the House that this is a taxation bill. It's not a general budget debate opportunity, so please return to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just wanted the public to be aware of what they're up against here. So the alternative has been outlined. Anyway, excuse me, thank you. I join with my friend from the ACT Party in approving the taxpayer, getting rid of the fringe benefit tax for the tradies. Fantastic little bill, and we'll have more to say on all the other parts of the taxation bill as we go through this process. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Whoa, that was close. I had
so much noise.
Someone didn't sit there and basically had to sit there and talk about things that weren't related to the bill.
Yeah, I lost the plot when he went off track.
Yeah. Oh well, let's move on to our great friend Tony Seymour, who sits down there and gives us free accommodation exchange for a koha when we host an It's in the Ballot show in Hamilton. And we spent more time talking about Tony than his MP, Ryan Hamilton from Hamilton East.
I commend this bill.
I actually hadn't called you, Mr. Hamilton. I hadn't called you. I'm sorry, there was a lot of noise going on. So I called Ryan Hamilton.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Look, this is a great bill. It's some simple tax hygiene, some incentives for leasing of vehicles, leasing of planes, a huge opportunity. I commend it to the House.
Well done.
Okay.
Yeah, so what was it called? When he wasn't saying the bill, he took 7 words. And he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. 34 words, and when he rightfully had his call. So what did you learn from Ryan Hamilton, Tony Seymour's MP, about the tax bill? Because I learnt absolutely nothing.
No, it didn't. Nothing to register there.
Yeah. Okay. Since we learnt nothing from Ryan Hamilton from Hamilton East, let's go and learn something from a MP called Megan Woods from the electorate of Wigram.
The Honourable Dr Megan Woods.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it is my pleasure to take a call, of the first of many, I'm sure, on this Taxation Budget Measures Bill number 3. Nothing screams budget legislation like kicking off with a piece of tax legislation. Now, Madam Speaker, what we do know is the things that this bill is going to do. It's quite a narrow piece of legislation, and it's, as my colleague, the Honourable Dr Deborah Russell indicated, that at this stage, on the surface, these are things that Labor can get behind, the things that are done in this tax bill. But we will also have some questions as we go through these changes, as we go through the various stages of the bill, which is what you would expect. So what we do know, the outstanding loans from company to a shareholder is taxable income to the taxable income of the shareholder 6 months after the lending company is removed from the Register of the Companies Act 1993. So that is not an uncommon situation where you do have companies having outstanding loans to shareholders, and making sure that we've got the legislative provisions right in terms of our tax tax legislation regarding that is something that we do need to cover off. Charities, and this is introducing a donation limit of $100,000 per annum, and as my colleague Deborah Russell pointed out, there has always been a cap, but this is about increasing it for natural purposes, claiming a donation tax credit. So the change increases the tax received and the cap reduces the donation tax credits paid out. So one of the things that we really want to interrogate when we get to this part of the committee stage is whether or not this might reduce the amount of money that is being donated to charities. And this is a very important question for us on this side of the House, because what we do know with a lot of the other measures that are coming in through this budget that are going to disproportionately make some of the most vulnerable people in our communities even more vulnerable, that never before in our history are our charities going to be called into action. We've had a release today that homelessness is at the highest point it has ever been in our history, and the role of charitable organisations when the government is missing in action has never been more important. So this provision around any changes to the tax treatment of charities is something we will be interrogating with a great deal of scrutiny, because if we were to put any kind of handbrake on people donating to charities in the current context that we're in, New Zealand would be in an even more precarious state, and the people who are made even more vulnerable by today's budget would be put in an even more precarious state. So that's something that we will be looking at. There's stuff around membership, subscription and levies, and there's also about increasing the effective tax-free threshold for smaller non-profits, and that's increasing the effective tax-free threshold for not-for-profits from 1,000 to 10,000. And given that this threshold hasn't shifted since 1979, there's probably an argument that it probably is time to have a look at that threshold to see if it does need some movement. And again, this goes that we know for so many of our not-for-profits that are doing good work that this will make a significant difference, not only in the amount of tax they pay, but actually in the compliance. So if that threshold is lifted, that they won't have the compliance that goes with being eligible, with needing to pay tax. But as my colleague did indicate, there are a number of tax changes that were announced in the budget today that are not included in this tax bill that we have, that it accompanies the budget, and we're interested to know why. So just signalling to the Minister that we are going to have some questions. For example, the changes to the R&D tax initiative. Now, I can understand why in-year payments aren't in this bill, because you can do them already, and it's just re-announcing something that has been the practice for a number of years in terms of making available to innovative companies their R&D tax credit so they can put that back to work in their business. So I can see why the government isn't at haste to change the law about that, given it's already happening. But I am interested that, given that they want mining companies now to be able to claim any of their R&D tax incentives, that's not in this budget. So why is that not in this budget? And when is the government planning to make the changes in order to do that? Because, Madam Speaker, this is the only opportunity we get. Oh, I wanted to go longer. You could have given me longer.
Actually, I was so engrossed I missed the clock myself. Dan Bidwell.
So, as an executive member of It's in the Ballot Productions, how do you feel about the cap going from, for non-profit organisations, of what is an allowable deduction of $1,000 being lifted up to, did you say 10 or 20,000?
I don't recall exactly. It's a good change.
$10,000. So effectively, which, that would do us a hell of a lot of good, actually, to be honest. Because, as yourself, you're an executive member of It's in the Ballot Productions. I've not just got that myself, I've got the Newtown Residents Association. A lot of good that can be on the cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what's coming from National.
Madam Speaker, this is a good bill. Let's get it done. I commend it to the House.
And how many words did you sit there and say, Dan? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 words, Mr. Bidwell from Northcote. Paul Barlow's local MP there. And it's great that, 15 words on why a bill should go into law.
No substance next. Unless you've got a comment.
No substance next. I like that.
There we go. We have a video solution. Oh no, that one crashed too. Yay. Well, I think next time.
Oh, sorry. I hope you heard everything Kushla said.
No, I was trying to fix my camera and waiting to see why you were quiet.
Again with Kushla.
Kei o koutou kāinga maha, tēnā rā atu koutou katoa. E tū ana wau ki te kōrero mō te Pāti Reipa I runga I tēnei pere, ara te pere e pāna ki ngā take tāke. E te manga o te whare, māma rawatu te kete, kare rawatu, tēnei kāwanatanga e paku mārama ki te ao tūturu e pāna ki te iwi Māori, e paku mārama ki te ao tūturu e pāna ki ngā tāngata puta noa I a Aotearoa. Madam Speaker, it's my pleasure to rise on behalf of the Labour Party to speak on the taxation bill. Madam Speaker, at a time where we know we are told each and every day the #1 priority for people across Ikaroa Rāwhiti and across Aotearoa is the cost of living. And yet, this government have elected to make their first matter of business post-budget a taxation bill that has very little relevance to the people my eco staff, the staff of many MPs around Aotearoa are getting every day. While my learned colleagues before me, Madam Speaker, have advised that we are supporting this bill through to committee stage, it must be acknowledged that very little people in Ikaroa Rāwhiti, very few people in Aotearoa are contemplating making donations over the threshold of $100,000. People across Aotearoa are contemplating the $30 extra a week they need to find to keep roofs over their heads. They are contemplating why, at the moment, there are more cuts impacting their families. Another thing, the Honourable Dr. Deborah Russell, in referencing the aircraft leases, said it's sensibly removing some barriers. But once again, Madam Speaker, no one in my electorate has come to me and said, I'm having issues about all these aircraft lease parts that I'm leasing. Can you do something to help me out? Not one, shock horror from that side, not one of my constituents has said, hey, Kush, all these aircraft I'm leasing, I need help. And yet, this is the first order of business for this government. How out of touch? Probably on an aircraft you lease. Probably on an aircraft you lease. I've just asked how I got here. Yeah, you should catch it home. You know, for the whānau watching, you can't hear, but the interjections from the opposite side are longer than the speeches they make and their contributions. Again, an indication of the value they put on what matters to constituents around New Zealand. Sorry? Oh, you can wait till 10, you're going to get time, and we're going to get time to debate this further. Wait till you get your 10 seconds. So, Madam Chair, yes, this is the first point of business. Working for families, again, that is actually something that comes up consistently throughout my eco offices, throughout Ikaroa Rāwhiti, between Wainui-o-Mata and Rangitukia up the East Coast. Working for families is something that comes up every day. And of course, simplifying that process will actually have a direct impact on families throughout Aotearoa who vote and put us all here. But I must reiterate, Madam Chair, at a time when we've had cuts to kāinga ora, at a time we have had cuts to Māori-specific education initiatives, at a time we've had cuts to Te Puni Kōkiri, cuts to services that directly impact Ikaroa Rāwhiti and communities around Aotearoa, this government are choosing for their first matter of business post an underwhelming budget to discuss a taxation bill that will have very little real impact on the lives of the majority of Aotearoa. So while we do support this bill through the committee stage, Madam Speaker, I must make those points. Tēnā koe.
So while we've got Faceless Ray here, how did you find Kushla's speech after we were able to, after I actually put it in the right section of the page?
Mildly inspirational. What about you?
Going good. I mean, Kushla is Stacey's local MP.
I see.
So she is performing. I hope she's performing well. I mean, Stacey might be in the background listening, going, "Yes, she is. No, she's not." We'll figure it out. Let's see what comes from. Was it a person who shares an electorate office with Christopher Luxon, Nancy Liu?
Madam Speaker, in this unprecedented global uncertainty days, this bill will join the rest of the bills that this government will be delivering to fix the basics and build a future for all New Zealanders. I commend the bill to the House.
The question is that the motion...
Fixing the basics. Well, I'm not sure how you're fixing the basics, but great job. Saying that you're fixing the basics sometimes sits there and sells it for some people. Sometimes some people just sit there and think you're being an arrogant twat. But unfortunately, sometimes it's just what it is. Your 2 cents worth on Nancy Liu's having to mention about this crisis of the world, but that's all she can talk about.
Yeah, very opinionated. I mean, the bill is what it is, so if you don't like it, write another one, I guess.
Oh, well, they are in government. They can write that, they are responsible for writing their bills. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to go and have a nosy at some of the second reading speeches?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Let's get to the vote.
To be agreed to, those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Taxation Budget Measures Bill number 3, first reading.
This bill is set down for second reading immediately.
Madam Speaker,
The Honourable Simon Watts.
I move that the Taxation Budget Measures Bill number 3 be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the House for considering this very important bill under urgency. One of the reasons for urgency is that the measures contained in this bill will help Kiwi families understand their Working for Families entitlements better and help them avoid...
What?
What just happened? Here we are.
Make those points. Tēnā koe.
Nancy Liu.
Madam Speaker, in this
Measures Bill number 3 be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the House for considering this very important bill under urgency. One of the reasons for urgency is that the measures contained in this bill will help Kiwi families understand their Working for Families entitlements better and help them avoid debt during these tough economic times. Although the Working for Families amendments would only come into effect from 1 April 2027, Inland Revenue needs to have enacted legislation in place by December in order to ensure the correct system changes and procedural steps are in place to prepare to allow families to begin enjoying the benefits of the change by 1 April next year. Mr Speaker, as I outlined in my first reading speech earlier, the detail of these changes will benefit the families who need them most. What matters now is progressing this bill so that the support can reach Kiwi families without any further delay. Kiwis who are feeling the pinch deserve Parliament that responds with urgency when they need it most. Mr Speaker, I would like to acknowledge my Inland Revenue officials for the stellar work they have undertaken during the budget process and including my ministerial staff in my office. Mr Speaker, I therefore commend this bill to the House.
The question is that the motion...
Oh, there's a different speaker, but it's all good. Gee, how do you feel about this? About the bill being passed under urgency even that, from what was just said in it, many of the tax measures could have been done at a later start that, needed to be legislated before December. But then again, we do have an election and the House does rise in September, so it probably is wise that we pass it under urgency.
Yeah, it's too complicated. Things need to take due process. That's partly why I haven't been on the show in so long, because we were dealing with the genetically modified stuff and the cyberbullying and all these other things that were very serious and being passed under urgency, and people I wasn't even aware of them until a few days before the last filing of a submission, and it was all very stressful. So I think that's why I backed out, and that's already a year ago. So I should probably chat with you sometime about what has occurred over the last year.
Well, you have moved house since then.
I've moved house twice since then.
Oh, actually, I was going to say, yeah, you're actually right on that one. And I've moved house since then as well. Yeah.
But yeah, kind of.
Oh yes,
you just said yes. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say you had an election hoarding on your fence at one of the properties, but you no longer live at that property.
So you're saying this is in second reading?
Yep, this is a second reading, but because it's under urgency, you immediately can go to the next stage.
Yeah, that guy was just arguing why it's important to get it changed now so that it's in effect by next time. That it wasn't really talking about the bill itself. Just saying that they support it.
Yeah.
Be agreed to. Dr. Deborah Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ordinarily at this time in the progress of a bill through a House, we would have had ample time to discuss the bill at Select Committee. Now, I absolutely understand that things differ when it comes to the budget, and in particular there can be items in the budget which need to go through fairly immediately because of the impact on markets, the way it might change people's behaviour and so on. So some of the time we absolutely need to be sure that we've had, so that we just keep on moving with the bill. We haven't had the opportunity, therefore, to discuss a number of these measures. And we also haven't had, I guess, an explanation as to why each of these measures needs to go through under urgency as a budget measure. And that's certainly something that we'll be talking to the Minister about. But it's not clear that this bill was even needed on budget night. Maybe the government felt it ought to have something to legislate for on budget day, otherwise it was just not a very good showing. But it's not clear to me, for example, as to why any of the measures that are in this bill couldn't have gone to a select committee for at least some discussion. Because I think there are possibly some items in the measures that have come before the House that could be tricky. So just to go through the measures that are sitting in the tax bill in terms of some of the tricky issues. Now, with the charities, for example, the government has elected to cap the tax credit for charities at, not the credit itself, but the amount for which one can get a tax credit, to be capped at $100,000. Now, that's an interesting move, and as the Minister correctly points out,
could members down there please keep it down, distracting the Speaker.
Thank you. As the government correctly points out, people are still welcome to give more to a charity, they're just not going to get the tax credit for it. That's an interesting way of tackling some of the problems that we've seen in recent years around charities, notoriously with the Wright family and the alleged charitable transaction they engaged in with setting up or resetting up the financial structures around the Best Start childcare centres. Under this particular change, they certainly wouldn't get a tax credit for what they had done, but if that kind of mechanism would not be ruled out by these particular changes. So there's still a little bit of a gap in the charities law there. Now, again, of course, eventually the Wright family was caught, I think, by Section GB1, and so they did end up having to pay the tax, but there was some pretty interesting stuff went on there. This is all on the public record. It's absolutely on the public record. And so there's just a sort of issues that still need to be examined there, and we could perhaps have discussed them at Select Committee. In terms of the shareholder loans, there's a particular mechanism that has been chosen here around how shareholder loans. Again, it's a mechanism whereby which shareholders, particularly of very small companies, could make loans to themselves as shareholders or to associated parties, and as I said previously, defer any tax on it in such a way the tax was never paid. Now, the mechanism. This is in your bill, Minister. The mechanism which they have chosen is to use the financial arrangements rules for these shareholder loans. But of course, the financial arrangements rules only apply to arrangements over $200,000. Now, perhaps there is something sitting in this legislation that works around that particular rule. It's something that we could have examined at Select Committee, and we will certainly want to ask the Minister about it at the committee stage. In terms of the changes to the family scheme income, now, given that we have only had access to the bill itself for a couple of hours, it was circulated earlier, and then we have only just now had access to some of the analysis from Inland Revenue, which is generally excellent about the bill. I don't know exactly how those family scheme changes will actually work yet. There are adjustments mostly in the first to the residence of a person. Now, so we're going to judge it by actual residence in New Zealand rather than by tax residency. That looks like a sensible move to me. But in terms of the calculation of family scheme income, that's important. The more family scheme income a person has, the less they get of the Working for Families tax credits. That's sensible. The more income one has, the less assistance one might need from the state, so you want those things to change around. But there's some interesting changes in there around the income equalisation rules and how they're counted for family scheme income. Could have talked about that at length at Select Committee. So again, that's going to be something I'm sure the Minister's great enjoyment, we're going to dig into at the committee stage for this bill. So a lot of work that we still need to go through for this bill, and alas, I anticipate we're going to be here for several hours doing that. However, what I do especially want to go back to is, as I said, not so much what is in this bill. The measures that are in this bill, we think at first reading, or the second reading now, we can sensibly support. They look on the whole to be sensible measures and measures that we can support. However, we'll reserve our final call on that for after we've worked through the committee stage. It is the measures that are not in the bill, were the measures which the government announced today, said they were great measures, talked about them in their budget materials, had material up on the Inland Revenue website about it, but those measures have not been included in the tax bill. I'm talking about the measures such as the changes to the fifth rules, the Foreign Investment Fund rules. Now, they promised that in their statement that's on the analysis that's on the Inland Revenue website there, that they would be looking to extend the recent revenue account method changes to the fifth rules to all fifth taxpayers. Looks like a good move. But if we're going to put these types of measures, which are not time sensitive, except for maybe the family scheme rules, so we're going to put these sorts of measures into the tax bill, why not that measure? They announced today a set of changes to the fringe benefit tax rules. Some particularly interesting changes around how we calculate the use of vehicles for fringe benefit purposes. Now, having spent quite a bit of time teaching my students how to manage those calculations for vehicles, and it was fearfully complicated. The particular set of changes that the Minister has put through, as said he's going to put through, look pretty good. So why not have them in this bill now? Why not now, along with all the other things that he's putting through here that could have done with some time in Select Committee? Now, maybe there's some consultation, more consultation needs to be done around that, but why not in this bill? It could have been done. So there's a whole set of measures that have been announced today, which the government has taken credit for today, which are not in this bill. And conversely opposed to that, it's not clear as to why the particular measures that are in the bill needed to be in here. Not clear why the charities measure needed to be in this bill. Why do we need to go into urgency? Why do we need to spend our time here all through Friday and on into Saturday debating this bill when it need not have been done? It could have gone through an ordinary tax process. And those kind of unexplained absences, are, in fact, I think, emblematic of this budget as a whole. This budget that doesn't do anything for the ordinary people of New Zealand, that doesn't help out the people who are doing it tough at the moment, that in fact looking at some of the legislation that's coming down the track actually makes things harder for some of the poorest people in New Zealand. My leader today characterised this not even as a Robin Hood budget. It's a budget that kind of makes things work by making things worse for the poorest people in the country. That's shameful. So, Mr. Speaker, a tax bill of gaps, just like this budget of gaps.
And when you get your camera working, it plays up again.
Yep.
No, we got it working.
It refuses to connect via Bluetooth to the PC, even though it should have no issue. Connects for a second and then drops, and so this might actually be over mobile data. Connect through the phone to the internet, through the whatever, back to the computer, back to you, Sam.
Oh god, what a convoluted way. Oh, yeah. You and your sleep out.
Yes, but there is a Ethernet connection to the house here, which is great. And then I think I just need to move the Wi-Fi extender for the phone or something or other.
Oh yeah, or just get yourself
I'll get a new camera. This old one, like, while it might be the camera itself causing issues, it might also be the AMD drivers. I've sent them an issue report.
So say, do we need
next time I will use Microsoft Edge browser rather than Chrome, and that might help. Or I'll check my Chrome settings.
Feels like a lot of fun. Well,
It's
not
just
really.
it's just conflicts of interest within the supercomputer.
Conflicts of interest within drivers on a computer. God, that sounds so technical. I've got a conflict of interest to declare. I might not like the drivers in the computer.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Any comments from Deborah Russell on round 2?
I don't know why they keep pointing out what it's not doing. Like,
because it's under urgency and it's boring.
Yeah.
We'll get on to my local MP, Julian Genter.
The Honourable Julian Genter.
Good honour, Mr. Speaker. I rise to take the second call on the debate on this bill, first one in the second reading. This bill is not huge. Ironically, in the first reading speeches, we had government coalition members who were speaking about tax initiatives announced in the Minister of Finance's budget speech that are not contained in this bill at all. In fact, that was the only thing the ACT member referred to and the only thing the New Zealand First member referred to, other than waving around some propaganda from a fake union charity. And then the government members basically didn't take calls. It's unclear if any of the government members, aside from the minister, know what's in the bill or are obviously not going to contribute to the debate around it, because it is budget night. They've got a lot of bills they want to ram through. They know that the opposition is going to try and apply scrutiny, as is our role in a democratic system, and the fact that these bills are bypassing the select committee process means they will not be subject to much scrutiny. So that's what's going on. If anyone at home is watching, we're debating a bill that we only just saw about an hour or two ago, just for the benefit of government members. The bill does not contain any changes to fringe benefit tax, nor any changes to the overseas, the foreign investment funds, but it does contain changes to the amount that you can claim one can claim as a donation tax credit. It does make changes to working for families, and it does make some changes to the student loan scheme, which seem to be pretty inconsequential and related to the working for families changes, but we still need a little more time, and we'll probably dig into that during the committee stages, Mr. Speaker, which will come up after the dinner break. And it changes, so treating outstanding loans from businesses to shareholders as income when the company goes into liquidation. And we feel that is a fair income tax on those people. Limiting the donation tax credit to $33,333 per financial year will really only affect the wealthiest people. And we have seen, and it was in the regulatory impact statement, that there are issues with the donation tax credit being misused for aggressive tax planning, or what's the word for it? Is it tax? It's not tax avoidance. It's like the legal thing you do, tax minimization. The legal thing super rich people do when they're greedy and they don't want to contribute their fair share to our beautiful nation. And here we go. Dan Bidwell says everyone does it. Everyone does tax minimization, but that absolutely expresses the values of the people that are currently in government. They think it's a good thing to be greedy and to not give forward and contribute to our beautiful country. That's what they stand for. Not paying their fair share. To be honest, I donate a lot to charities, and so does my partner, and we never, ever, ever claim the tax credit for donations. Why? Because we actually want to pay tax. Because we actually believe that why would we bother with going through this paperwork to try and save some money when that money is money that can contribute to things that we all buy together. And that is the fundamental difference in the worldview of people in the Green Party and people in the government parties. They don't believe in public good. They do not believe in public good unless it's a motorway. There's 100% socialism for highways. Very happy to throw that on the credit card and make future New Zealanders pay back their insane highway plans. But when it comes to paying our public servants to do important work to help people, that is the most important. They're against it. I think it is all very relevant to my speech. I say to the government speakers, who are all welcome to take a call and speak about the detail of this bill. Love to hear you take a call, other than Minister Simon Watts. No one is taking a call. Oh, Seatoon, we've got government members referring to my beautiful electorate, Rongotai. It is wonderful. And there's a lot of people there who used to vote National. They don't anymore. A lot of people in Rongotai used to vote National. Who won the party vote?
Not to conversate across the chamber, and just a reminder that interjections should be rare.
And pithy, right?
Rare and pithy would be helpful.
Witty. So apologies, Mr. Speaker. I did get sidetracked. That was my fault. I got sidetracked by the interjections and heckling from the government benches. So I'm going to come back to this bill, which is one that we're going to support, but we are going to have to dig into the detail at the committee stages because this is not going to a select committee. But going back to the issue around tax credits for donations. What it says in the regulatory impact statement is that the donation tax credit can be misused for aggressive tax planning, and donors can receive tax credits well in advance of funds being applied to charitable purposes or derive private benefit, for example, through loans received back from the charity. And Inland Revenue has observed an increase in such behaviour, which may be facilitated by New Zealand's comparatively generous settings. So, I think that's interesting. I think IOD has done a good job here, and I commend Minister Watts on bringing some sensible changes to the House on budget night, which might limit the cost to the Crown. And in a way, it's going to. We want that public money to be going to the genuine public good purposes. So that brings me to the other side of this, which is, as Labour members, I think it was Honourable Megan Woods mentioned during the first reading speech, that there could be some concern that this will discourage charitable giving, and that charitable giving is needed now more than ever because the government has been cutting funding to things like food banks and other core public good purposes that are carried out by charities. And I work with many of these charities in my electorate, Rongotai, in Wellington Central, like DCM, that's the Downtown Community Ministry, who do some of the most important work dealing with the people who have it the toughest. And, they're people who have mental health issues, trauma, substance abuse issues, might be homeless. We're trying to get them off the street. They're trying to help them. I went to a beautiful chess game. They have a chess day once a year in Wellington and played chess, and it was a fantastic opportunity to engage with people who honestly are living life in a much more precarious way than I am and my family, and I'm so lucky. And one of the things that I would like to see is core Crown funding from a fairer tax system that's raising more revenue from those people who are trying to minimize their tax, and actually investing that in those core services that protect people, that mean that people are fed, that they're getting the support services they need to deal with trauma. Some of that trauma maybe came at the hands of the state in state care, that they are getting the treatment that they need to get off the addictive substances, and that all of that has to happen in a context where they have both safe, warm, dry, affordable home, like a home they don't have to pay for, housing first, and they have access to those social support services. And so we love the work that many charities are doing. We don't want to see charitable status used by the ultra wealthy to minimize their tax and to avoid contributing to things that are in our public interest and common good, because those people, they could be any of us, People fall on hard times, and maybe they were born in a situation where their parents had suffered trauma, they suffered trauma, maybe at the hands of the state as a result of colonization, and they just need some help. And that could be any of us. That could be any of us. And the difference is those members opposite, they like to believe that people in bad circumstances are there because they are bad, and that somehow those people are pull themselves up from their own bootstraps thanks to their $200,000 loan from their parents to buy their first home or whatever it is. The world is not fair, but we can make it fair. The world is not fair, but we can make it fair. And this bill is just the tiniest tiniest little move in the right direction, some little tweaks around the edges from this tax bill, but we could be doing so much more on this budget day, and we will next budget day.
Some very good witty lines.
Yeah. Still trying to make sense of the donation tax credit.
Well, here's some great news. If you are one of these people who like to give a stupid amount of money in donations because you're so charitable to get the tax credit back, the new rules don't kick until 1st April 2027, so you can continue. Donate now and donate to the extreme while there's no cap available.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's just weird. I don't get it. I don't even understand how it could possibly be profitable or something. It's just like,
Tax minimization.
Like I made probably $500 to $1,000 of donations, and it would be nice to offset that. It almost seems more like a way of saying, like, I support this charity, and I believe that the government should too. So in a way, reading IRD's statement on introducing the ceiling, but I still can't quite make sense of it. Donation tax credit to the lower of $100,000 of the donor's taxable income.
Yeah.
Would yield a maximum of this.
Well, you would be to the maximum income because you earn under $100,000 a year. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Okay, so it's 10 o'clock. Time to call it a night. Still going on. If you'd like to donate to the Wellington City Council Mayoral Relief Fund for those affected by the floods on April the 20th. Oh, that's ages ago now. Please sit there and do so. The Conservation Amendment Bill closes on the 2nd of July. The Serious Fraud Office, sorry, that one's already been closed. I think that one's all closed. I think this is where it'd be. The Drug Assistance Protection Legislation Amendment Bill closes on Tuesday the 16th. The Financial Markets Money Transfer Amendment Bill closes on the 18th. The Overseas Adoption Bill closes on the 23rd. Local Government Ports Accountability closes on the 2nd of July. The Public Finance Prohibition of Providing Public Funds to Gangs closes on the 2nd of July. The legislation for a definition of man and woman and man amendment bill closes on the 2nd of July. And the Summary Offence Move on Orders Amendment Bill closes on the 2nd of July. So those are things you have to get your submissions onto. Anything else you'd like to say apart from I'm confused?
No, not really. It's good to be here, Sam.
It's all right. Glad you can make it and glad you can jump in.
What is it? You've got a stream tomorrow morning?
Oh, that's something that's actually that's a very iffy situation. So tomorrow is the start of scrutiny week. And there can be some streaming getting done, but Kiwi Pulse and I've sent an email to Kiwi Pulse. We haven't worked out a schedule. We need to actually work out a schedule tonight to decide on which streams we're going to be concurrently streaming together. So, yeah. So, yes, if you'd like to catch what's happening on Scrutiny Week, we'll be broadcasting some shows. So will Kiwi Pulse. We'll be doing a special Order Paper podcast tomorrow at 5 p.m. It was meant to be 7 p.m., but Scrutiny Week seems to like always landing itself on the 3rd Monday of June. That is also the Newtown Residents Association Day. It's also the day that Laura is also unavailable, and Stacey's currently doesn't want to write that check in case it cannot be cashed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're going to do it at 5 o'clock. I'm going to have a fucking fun day at work tomorrow. Yeah.
Godspeed.
So we'll see you all back at 5 p.m. tomorrow for more from the Order Paper podcast.
Thanks all. Ka kite anō.
Okay.
Thank you for watching the Order Paper, your express ticket to the New Zealand House of Representatives. Every episode, we unravel the complex world of legislation, debate, and democracy. From bills to select committees, we've got it all covered. From our team of political commentators who will dissect and explain what's happened so you can remain up to date on what's happened in the Aotearoa, New Zealand Parliament. To support our channel, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/itsinthaballot. The Order Paper podcast is brought to you by It's